Welcome to another episode of 5D Tea Time. I'm your co-host, Kristen, with,
Lindsay Love.
yes, episode 15.
Episode 15.
Yeah. So in our debrief before talking, we were just sharing this process of overcoming fear when we are, wanting to step forward in our lives, and how fear, when we are taking a big step forward, how fear inevitably is a part of that formula and that picture. It's like fear is like, oh no, you can't do that. When a state wants to keep us small and comfortable, and but there's something inside of us that's pulling us forward to like evolve and change and grow anyway. And yeah, so Lindsay, how do you work with fear as an ally? How do you work with fear when you're wanting to move forward and you're feeling like that pushback of um, maybe a part of you wants to stay in the comfort zone because it's scary to move through? How do you manage this? How do you deal with fear?
This is my favorite topic.
Okay.
I just love talking about fear. So I've like coached quite a bit on this, and it's kind of like the basis of my coaching in a way. So like I said, it's one of my favorite topics, and I've said this before, but I think it's very relevant to this current moment. Is like fear is kind of, when we look at growth and we look at self-growth and we look at goals that we want to achieve, or dreams, long-held dreams, the fear to me is kind of like a treasure map in a way. So it's like, if it's popping up, that's actually a really, really good thing. It's really hard to see that in the moment. It's because it's paralyzing to feel it. Fear is so incredibly uncomfortable, and if we allow it to kind of take a hold of us, it can actually eventuate into self-sabotage. So we can end up not going for the thing we want because the fear is so uncomfortable. But the beauty of it is if we can kind of transform that thinking and recognize that things are always shifting, things are always changing, this too shall pass. So inevitably the fear will pass on, and another energy or another feeling or another emotion will come through to replace it. So if we can learn to sit in the fear and actually utilize it as this like jumping off point, or as this map, it's like, okay, here's the fear, this is a good thing. Because if I wasn't afraid, I wouldn't be going to next level. I wouldn't be stepping into where I want to go. Because if we're not afraid and we're not uncomfortable, then we're comfortable. So when we're comfortable, we're kind of doing what we've always done. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's the thing for me, is like, when the fear arises, it's actually such a beautiful thing. And if we can kind of keep that in the back of our minds as we're going through it, and again, it's terrifying, it's a rough process, but if we can kind of keep that there and say, this isn't forever, and this is actually positive, because as I sit in this, as I experience it, as I kind of learn to work with it and push past it, or like step into the fear a little bit, new horizons start opening up, new possibilities start coming through. And there's this line to a song, it's one of my favorite songs, Starting Over by Chris Stapleton. And he says, nobody wins afraid of losing. So it's like, we can be afraid to lose and never take the risk. We can be afraid of fear. We can be afraid of failure and never take the risk. Or, we can say, okay, I might lose here, but I could win. And eventually I will win. I might have to lose a couple of times or fail a couple of times in the process. But throughout it all, I'm learning and I'm facing these fears. And as I face these fears, I become more and more and more comfortable and confident in what I'm doing. I become more comfortable with fear and trusting that, by facing it and stepping through it, just baby steps, one foot in front of the other, baby step, baby step. next thing you know, the next level comes in. And I don't think we ever eliminate fear. Of course, there's always fear, and we always want more. There's a next thing that we want. We achieve something, we're like, oh, I did that, now I want to go there. Well, that comes with its own set of fears as well. So we're always confronting fears along the way when it comes to growth and evolution and achievement of goals and dreams that we've always longed for.
Beautiful. I just the way you're talking, it's just such positive psychology. Just sounds like just like this positive inner dialogue, like this positive coach, it's like you can do it, just like one step, then the next, then the next, and boom, then the goal will be there. It's very, yeah, very cool. Yeah, sometimes fear, it's like we see the goal, we see the big picture, and it's an overwhelming energy. It's like, wow, I'm here, that's where I want to be. And it's like how to process from here to there. And sometimes fear is like, no, forget it. That's too big. It's too much. But what you're saying with the step-by-step process is a really, and that self-coaching, that self-affirming, positive psychology, like, okay, do this and then do this. And then, one step, two step, and there you are. Yeah, it's funny. I'm reminded of of a shaman. He used to say that hopani kopani fititera, one step, two step, and there you are. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. It's just like, and you're kind of like just dancing along the path, and then boom, you're in the dream that you were visioning.
Yeah, mine is have you ever seen the movie What About Bob?
Long time ago. What oh gosh, what's the reference?
Richard Dreyfuss and oh my gosh, such a good actor. Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. Yeah.
I think it's like late 80s, early 90s, but Richard Dreyfuss is a psychologist and Bill Murray is his patient, and all the other psychologists have gotten rid of Bill Murray along the way because they can't help him.
Yeah.
And so Richard Dreyfuss has written this book about baby steps, and I just found it so relatable. And so, Bill Murray can barely even leave his house, let alone like go for an adventure or a vacation or whatever. But through this process of baby stepping with the book, he just says baby steps, baby steps down the hall, baby steps to the elevator, baby steps on the bus, baby steps, here, there. And it really can be as simple as that. And I think sometimes it needs to be like in the moment, okay, just like life is really full on right now and it's like filled with fear and I'm going through big change and like you said, like looking at the bigger picture feels like so overwhelming. How will I get from point A to point B? But then the baby step, like just one foot in the front of the other, like get out of bed, make your bed, do this one thing today, do that one thing, and then add more things in along the way. But yeah, that's what comes to mind.
I love that. I totally remember that now that you're saying it. And it's almost like inevitable. It's a part of saying yes to something. It's a part of the formula that the fear is going to come in. And in a sense, it's like embracing the fear as your inner child, like as that fearful part of you. It's like, oh, well, how can I coach you along? Like, what do you need, fear, to feel more safe, more supported, more protected? Because, we're moving forward together. I'm not going to abandon you, fear. You talk to it like a little kid almost, because it is kind of the little kid in you that wasn't supported and was scared and frightened, but had to like just be thrown out in the world anyway. And so it's kind of like going into ourselves and really honoring that, like, okay, well, what do you need for support here? Okay, this step would feel more secure, like whatever it might be. Yeah, just setting up frameworks to make sure that fear feels supported, because it's really, I think a lot of it's just like, oh, we feel isolated, abandoned, flailing on our own, like doing this thing. And yeah, when we feel that support that we can actually give to ourselves, um, or ask for support externally to support a process that we're going through, it kind of ensures that there's follow through and that you're not going to um, abandon the goal, the vision, the dream in a moment of like kind of falling into a crevice, a caveat. Um, yeah. So yeah, it's almost guaranteed that in growth in a human life that yeah, fear is a part of that formula, but how to develop a healthy relationship to it. It sounds like that's the body of your coaching work. It's wonderful. So what
Yeah, I
oh go ahead. Yeah. Mhm.
no, I just the support system, is so huge with it because sometimes it's hard. It's like being so caught up in it. Um, yeah, being so caught in the fear or in the change or whatever's happening, and it can be so overwhelming, and it's hard to re remind oneself of what's happening or keep that in the back of the mind, like, oh, this is actually happening because I'm moving forward.
Mhm.
And yeah, I love your comment about the support, but the support system as well. And that might be friends and family. It may be something like a healer, a coach, a therapist, whatever that looks like. But being able to recognize, like, okay, I'm in a moment of massive change and I really want to navigate this as best as I possibly can. And I need some support to do that. And
Yeah.
then calling on people and asking for help.
Yeah.
Um,
Because let's face it, I mean, we are in a time of immense change. I mean, on a personal level, on a planetary level, like the new world is here. I mean, as Eckhart Tolle says, like it's here. And when that higher frequency, this is just like the law of physics, when the higher frequency comes in, the lower frequencies dissolve, and that higher frequency becomes like the new template, and that, I mean, that's exactly what's happening. So we're witnessing, it's just going to increase the rapidness and the bigness of the change that's a part of the old
hmm.
systems, the old world. And so yeah, just there's a lot of bumping up against ourselves in this almost it's like we can change by choice or change by force. Change is inevitable.
Yes.
So it's like really nice to be on the proactive end of it and like, claim it and say, yes, this is what I want. Because then like the power and the force of like the soul's vision and the soul's like mission is like the power charge moving forward rather than like the impact of the thing like traumatizing you and forcing you into change. And sometimes that happens, sometimes events just happen, yet to be on the more like proactive momentum force
Mm,
of change and just understand that fear is a part of that formula, and like yeah, phone a friend, like call and support, like let people know, because I found too, when I'm going through a big fear contraction, which you're very well aware of, Lindsay, I almost forget to phone people. Like I almost forget that I even have people in my life because it's enshrouding and it feels like it's all there is. It can be very isolating. It can be very disorientating. It can be very confusing, like misguide, like you don't have guidance or direction. You don't even remember you have friends or family or even a body, you know? So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
um, like in those moments, I mean, what would you suggest to someone who's in a fear contraction? Like, what do we do when fear seems like all there is?
Mm.
What would you say?
Yeah, I think first the recognition that it's there,
Yeah.
right? Because that alone is liberation and freedom. Because if we can see outside of ourselves, beyond ourselves, that there's this thing consuming us, debilitating us, but it's not innately who we are. It's just something, it could be, psychological or subconsciously. We don't really know where it's coming from. I don't know. Maybe it came before we came into this body. Who knows? Spiritually, we can't really describe it, right? But sometimes this fear is like just recognizing that it's there and the effect that it's having on oneself. So I think prior to creating any kind of change or moving through anything or confronting anything is first the recognition that it exists. Then from there, I think it's unique to the individual, like how debilitating is the fear? How big is the fear? What is the fear? And how much self-awareness has someone done around fear? How much self-awareness do they have, A, and B, have they worked through things like this before, or is it the first time, right? And then I think from there, kind of decipher, but recognition it's there, and then slowly baby steps making change and deciphering how much someone can handle at one time. So if there's a lot of change that needs to happen, it's better to start very slow with smaller steps and build on that. Where with other people, maybe there's big change, but they've been through a lot of big changes before. So they have experience with it, right? So it can be moved through relatively quickly. So it's like straight into a process. But I think the breath is another thing that kind of comes up, and I hope you can elaborate on that because of the breath work that you do and all the healing that and the fears you help people work through via that. But yeah, I think that's a huge one. So first, kind of the acknowledgement, and then deciphering, what's the best strategy to really conquer the fear, and how much change can someone handle at one time, and then really, taking it step by step by step by step.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that I want to ask you. So you said the new world a while ago, and I would really love for you to elaborate on that for people who might be new to that term. Like, what exactly do we mean by we're moving into the new world? And then the other thing, I don't know, I just find that the breath is so powerful with anything. And I know you have a tremendous amount of experience with breath work. And so I would love if you could elaborate on that a little bit too, if possible.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I love what you said about the identification, just like recognize, like naming it, right? Like, I'm in fear, I'm in contraction. And that alone starts to create a an identification of fear as something not the core essence. Like, you start to move into like the observer seat of the fear. So then, like, the positive psychology and just the self inquiry and self healing can start to happen. And then I would say, like, identifying it and even locating where it lives in the body. Like, where am I experiencing the fear in my system? Where am I the most contracted? And because, like, a lot of times fear makes us want to like fight, flight, or freeze, like run away or contract or suppress or hide even more. But when we identify it and then we locate it, it's almost like we can lean into it. And it's kind of like, oh, then we can start to talk to it, like, fear. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I
Like
see.
it doesn't carry as much power as it did prior.
Exactly. Exactly. And like, a lot of times fear just wants to be seen. Like, I'm here, like, I'm freaked out, like, whatever this like identity thing is, it's lodged in the psyche and the system. So a lot of times these parts of us just want to be seen, want to be acknowledged,
Yeah.
that they're there. And when we kind of lean into that and give it attention like a scared child, things start to change. And we bring our benevolence, our love to it as like a scared child. And it starts to change that pain, that tension, that moment of acute contraction. Um, it starts to open, it changes. And yeah, from there, then like the healing ascension spiral can happen. And I would say that's kind of a keynote to the new earth, the ascension timeline. It's like contraction moves in like descending spirals where it just gets tight, constricted, rigid, and just feels like it's going to crumble and die. and what we just did with coaching fear, rather than contracting around it, staying small, shrinking, and then, you know, just falling out of life that way. It's like the new earth energy is a kind of locking into that deeper central soul space. It's like the soul coach, the soul drive, the soul connection to the world soul.
Mhm.
Um, and it has this sense of being a part of something greater than its individuated, isolated self. It's like a part of this
Mm.
collective evolutionary cycle. And the world soul is receiving this. It's an organic template. It's like organic life. It's nature. It's natural life. It's the nature of our biology and being. And um, this nature of Mother Earth, of the planet, and of the whole solar system is in a particular time cycle where we are located in the photon belt, receiving massive amounts of light. And we're just like, just edging into it. I mean, we are going through it. So, like, the planet is going through quantum shifts, quantum changes in all the nanoparticulates that it's receiving. And it's bringing new light codexes in. It's like new DNA through these nanoparticles that are just, it's just happening. It's just, there's no stopping it. This is like massive cosmic cycle energy. And so the mind wants to contract and hold on to the old, but it's falling away because it's just a part of this natural cycle that we're moving into higher, quicker, faster frequencies. You know, the particle spin is increasing. So change is inevitable, and it is an activity of now.
Yeah, and it's speeding and coming in more rapidly and more intensely. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Exactly. And that's the trajectory we're on. That there's no actual endpoint to that.
right.
So the importance of like staying fluid with the changes and just embracing change as a part of the rhythm of life. The holding, of course, we're going to contract and we're going to hold on because we're imprinted by the old world. There's a part of this vessel that is imprinted by the old world.
Mhm.
So the fears and the healing journey is just a part of the dissolution of the old as we step into this future self, this future earth that is actually here now. Um,
Mhm.
and it's our light body, it's our soul body, it's our spirit body. It is actually who we in the innermost heart space, core of our being, want to be. But there's pushback. There's pushback because we're physicalized. So there's like physicalized, emotional, mental processes of shedding. It's just a part of the acceleration. So, and it can be very intense, it can be very intense. Yeah.
Very intense.
Process. And we want to just be sure that we're anchoring our consciousness, anchoring ourselves in the new earth. So a lot of times that old wants to like pull us and suck us into that vacuum, because it's so gripping, because we're hardwired to it, like literally hardwired. Our nervous systems, our autonomic nervous systems, are like physicalized processes are hardwired to that. So it's an interesting deep connection with ourselves that like we have to like remind ourselves again and again to like anchor into the new, or the now. Anchor into the now, not even forget the new. This anchoring into the now, because the now is aligned with, yeah, this high frequency template.
So to interrupt really quick, would you say it has to do with a comfort level? Like, even if we know we want to be over here in the new world and this is what we want, we don't have any experience there. So it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's change, it's evolution. There's fear around it because it's uncomfortable. It's new. We don't know it. And then you said we kind of keep getting sucked back into things of the past. And even though if we know that we no longer want to be there, it's a place of comfort. So even if we know it's maybe not healthy or it's not a place we want to continue in, it's comfortable. So we see that in many things in life, like with domestic violence and abuse and Stockholm syndrome and things like that, of people, returning to their captor or returning to their abuser again and again and again, because it's become psychologically a place of comfort because it's known. And that's an extreme example. But so we tend to gravitate towards like things that, or fall back into patterns, maybe not gravitate, fall back into patterns that are comfortable because it's what we've always known. But really over here is where we want to move towards. And so that requires not discomfort, but facing the uncomfortable and really getting comfortable with the idea of uncomfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think not identifying with it so much. Like you said, it's like, oh, as soon as you identify the discomfort or the fear, the contraction for what it is, there's like a separation. It's like, oh, now I become the observer of that thing. Like it's not me. It's something that is kind of influencing me and is like imprinted in me. It's a part of me, but by association, not by essence. It's not like my essential self, because actually the higher frequency is what we know on a soul level. It is our eternal, it's more connected to the eternal light self. It's like our eternal life and the light. It's more connected to that. And we actually know that. We've known that a lot longer than we've known yet in the physicalized body, to keep the body alive, to keep the body comfortable. That's because there is like layers of almost like of our identity, of our ego self that do die, so in the process of kind of becoming more fully expanded, free, creative, buoyant, energetic, full of vitality, life and love beings, there are these, the body has to go through this process of shedding, which is like death, it feels like death. It's like we have 1,000 deaths before we actually leave the body. And it's this process of shedding the layers of the ego. I mean, what was I in last week? I mean, this massive shedding of judgment. It was so powerful, all consuming. And I was like, I don't think I can take this step and go on. And thankfully I have an amazing friend and coach and star sister to walk me through that moment and be like, no, 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 this is, I hear you and it's valid. I get it. There's a lot of validation, and I know you and I know your purpose. I've listened to you for 30 years. Like, I know your mission. Like, you've got this. You've got this like a million times over. So these contractions, like, yeah, the things that we bump up within ourselves in this process of purification, it's a purifying process.
Mm.
I feel like the new earth, it's like the process to be there is just cleansing, purifying, just releasing. It's not like we have to gain anything. We have everything that we need inside. It's just like releasing, shedding, cleansing, clearing, purifying, so that it can just be free. That's what it seems.
Yeah, so it can be free. I mean, that's such a good point. And oh my God, how many times have you helped me through fear? And even recently, I mean, anything big that's happening, it's like, I'm going through a big change too, big stuff. And it's interesting because it's like, no matter, no matter how much big change one has been through in their lives, and I think we can both say that we've been through a lot of big change, whether it's traveling new places, living new places, starting new careers, putting ourselves out there, love, whatever it is. It's like, no matter how much one goes through, like, the fears still come up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what I kind of was alluding to earlier, is like, the fear never goes away,
Mm-hmm.
but the more we go through it, the more recognizable it becomes. And then as we recognize it, it's like, oh, okay, this is what this is. Call in my supports, call in my people, call in my girl, like, hey, like, I need you through this. Like, I just need, I need some support. And my God, I mean, how many times have you helped me through cancer and what I'm going through right now, just, it's just amazing. And if you can find that person or those people who will hold that space for you and just support you in the process of like, you got this, like, I see you, I know you, and you've got this. That's like gold. I mean, that's like one of the most beautiful things you can find in this life. And the fact that, I don't think change ever is comfortable or it's ever void of fear. I don't think that, but I think it becomes easier and easier and easier the more you do it, because you become familiar with the process. You have tools and people who can support during the process. And you recognize it that much quicker. So you call in those tools, you call in that support when it comes.
What's become clear to me too? I used to think, like, early on my spiritual path, I know we probably are getting close to time, but I used to think early in my spiritual path, oh, I'm gonna get this training, and then, like, once I have that training, that's gonna get me there and I'm gonna be good for life, and
Yeah.
then, or I'm gonna get this coach for now, and that's gonna help me, and like, once I get that formula, I'm gonna be good. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, what I'm discovering now is the more I advance on my path and like the bigger steps I want to take into really my soul's calling, it's like I need more support now than ever.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Yes.
going to be the opposite at the beginning. I was like, oh, if I just do this, oh, if I just get this little thing, then I'm going to be like good. And it's like, whoa, like with this vision that I have, like I really, and now it's like, oh, my fears have been coached along so much that it's like now my soul wants coaching to just really bring to life this inner, yeah, vision. And I know the layers of the ego that are inevitably going to be, maybe wanting to thwart or stall the process. It's like,
Mm.
oh, I need that support to not get sidetracked for a year or two or three or whatever would happen in the past. Like, oh, this one thing would put me into a healing spiral for a few years. And then like I just gotta be there with that and then come forward again with the next step. But it's like, oh, just the more ready I feel to step into the soul's journey, the more I realize, yeah, the support team is so necessary to catch
Mm.
me in those moments, like last week that you caught me. It's like, oh yeah, it's huge, huge. The support
Yeah.
community. Mhm.
Yeah, girl. I mean, same to you from me. And I think, the thing that comes to mind is like, what do we have to lose by not by not facing the fear, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
And, I'm going through big changes in my life right now. And if, if, if I let the fear control that and I don't do it, I think it would be something I regret for my entire life, the rest of my life, So just that recognition too of like realizing the fear and then identifying what it like is holding us back, could potentially hold us back from,
Yeah.
and how on our deathbed, right? Like we can't take things with us.
Mhm.
Like all becomes clear, right? And I've listened to a lot of people who are like hospice nurses and stuff like that talk about this stuff, and people talk about their regrets. And regrets are a big thing that comes up. Like I never did this and I always wanted to do that, or I always loved that person and I never told them, or I worked too much and I wish I would have spent more time with family, or whatever that is. And so um I don't want to leave this life with regrets.
Mhm.
And that's really important to me. And so I think the recognition too of when fear comes up, it's like, what do I serve, or like what would happen within me if I didn't see this through, if I didn't go for it?
Right.
And
That's scarier.
would that outcome be worse or scarier than the fear itself that I'm experiencing right now? And oftentimes for me it is. So it's like, just I like gotta do this. I gotta
Thanks.
do
I
this.
sound
So
in this.
mhm,
Yeah. That's so
yeah.
powerful. That framing is huge. Th-
Mm.
Yeah, you did that for me last week, and I appreciate that. I was like, oh yeah, okay, it's clear. Like this is like just me bumping up against myself here, and the limiting, the limiting rings of Saturn around me. Like, okay.
Oh, I know all about those limiting rings of Saturn. Holy cow. Whew.
Yeah.
Gosh dang, fear is just like debilitating. I mean, paralyzing at points.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it is. It's such a human thing. Like we all, yeah, we all have that. So, hire a coach. Lindsay's finding fearless or find your fearless coaching.
Find fearless coaching.
Find fearless coaching. We'll put a link to her coaching
Thanks.
in the description, because if you're stuck in a fear spiral, she's very skilled in supporting you through that to achieve the steps that you're wanting to move into.
As is Kristen. So I think we should put both of our links because we approach it in different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, whew, girl, you got me through so much in my life. So we need both those links up there because they're no doubt. But I mean, of course, there's like a different approach, but it's a similar outcome. So
Yeah, very cool. Good. Well, thanks for another wonderful conversation. And thanks to all of our viewers for being here with us. And so appreciate you. And yeah, we're here for you. So reach out with any comments or contact us personally if you're needing, guidance and support. So much love to you, and we'll see you next week.
so much love. Bye.
Love.